Welcome everybody to Linux Academy. My name is Terry, and over this course we will be covering all things Linux, introduction to installation and setup. So now that we've taken a look at Unity, let's take a look at KDE. KDE4 was a radical departure from KDE3, and KDE3 was one of the reasons that most Ubuntu, or most Linux distributions in general, moved away from KDE as the default desktop to GNOME and GNOME 1 and 2 at the time. But KDE4 took a lot of flack, as Unity did, for a number of radical architectural and visualization changes to what the desktop looked like. Now, I will say that KDE4 happens to be my favorite desktop of choice. It has a large number of customizations that are available for it, as well as what you would typically call desktop applets that I happen to enjoy a lot. So let's update our installation here. Be sure we've got the latest packages. So right now we're running Ubuntu Unity. So we have to get KDE installed in order for it to be available to us. It's not available from the default install. Ubuntu uses Unity. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to install KDE. So if we do a sudo apt-get install, and then we're going to do a full installation. A full installation means the desktop, the display manager, and all of the KDE applications that are available in the repository. Now, for the sake of time, because a full installation of KDE with all the applications is about half a gigabyte in size, I've already done the installation, and it is now available for us. So what we can do is, if we log out of our existing session, it will now let us log back in, and I'll be able to choose the session that I want to use. So in this case, we're going to log into the KDE, it's called the Plasma workspace, and it looks like this by default. Now, whoopee-doo. It doesn't look a whole lot different than a lot of the older desktops. However, it does offer a large number of customizations. We can add panels, add widgets, activities, shortcuts, make default desktop settings changes, and then we can lock the widgets. I like the widgets. And what widgets are they're small applications that run on your desktop. In fact, the menu bar itself is the application launcher widget, and there are a large number of them that come with KDE by default. So here, we've installed a widget that monitors CPU utilization. And that widget can be moved around and placed anywhere on the desktop that you would like. I have a large number of these widgets on my desktop, all over the place. In fact, you can see some of them if I minimize the virtual machine. I have a large widget that allows me to monitor the 8 CPUs in my system, the various hard drive spaces that are available on my system, on the number of partitions, my network utilization, my RAM usage and swap file, and the temperature of my CPU. I even have an embedded terminal here, which I tend to use to run HTOP monitor on my system. And then I have a calendar with events that are tied to my Google Apps account. So let's bring back up the VM. And all of these are available as widgets here on the desktop. Now, if you have Unity applications or GTK applications or GNOME applications, they all will work fine in KDE without any problem. And those applications will work full screen or in a window, just like they would otherwise. So our browser, in this case, Firefox, runs just fine. as does anything else. Now, applications are split, and again, this is kind of a Windows user paradigm, where the Start menu brings up categories that you can pick applications from. Multimedia being, here we've got the VLC media player, we've got the Rhythmbox media player, we've got the Dragon player, etc. If we go up here, we go back to applications, and we can go to our Office applications. And as you've seen before, we have our LibreOffice installation. We have AbiWord, Numeric, other things that are installed. And okay, here's a good example. So Numeric is a GNOME application, but as you can see, runs and looks just fine. The good thing about particularly Ubuntu, but Linux distributions and their maturity at this point is from a UI perspective, a user interface. The paradigms for using Windows and how they appear and how they behave on desktops has largely been unified so that GNOME applications work fine in KDE, and KDE applications work fine in GNOME. XFCE applications or X-Windows applications in general work fine in all of the desktops. Unity doesn't really have any specific Unity-based applications. It uses GTK and GNOME applications by default, and everything looks just fine. The settings for us are right here on the front page, and it looks very similar to what we saw in Unity. And we'll go over some of the customization options in our next video. So again, KDE can be installed with a single command line installation. Sudo apt-get install KDE full. It's about a 500 megabyte download, 1.2 gigabytes once it's installed. You'll have to choose what display manager you want to use. LightDM is the default. It's the one that comes with Ubuntu that uses Unity. KDM will install a KDE themed display manager, and a display manager is basically what runs your X Windows desktop and lets you log in. So it's not anything more complex than that. And next, when we talk about GNOME, GDM, which is the display manager for GNOME, will be installed and selectable as well. So we'll talk a little bit more about KDE customization in our next video. But for now, my name is Terry for Linux Academy, brought to you by Pinehead TV.